Welcome back to this week's Hooking Up and Tracking Down Tip of the Week. I'm Ranger Boat Pro staffer Steve Graff. Fishing line. I've talked to you in the past about fishing line, and last time I went over the whole gamut from fluorocarbon to monofilament to polycarb, copolymers, braid, you name it. Today I'm going to talk to you about two lines. Two lines, one particular line a lot of guys are reluctant to fish, the new fluorocarbon. You cannot beat sensitivity when it comes to fluorocarbon. I've used monofilament all my life, and I was a slow learner myself. It took me a long time to figure out fluorocarbon was the way to go. When I started using fluorocarbon, the sensitivity on my rod and reel combinations that I use just doubled times 10. I mean, I was really impressed with the sensitivity I had with fluorocarbon versus monofilament. You just don't have the sensitivity. It's not as, the monofilament's not as stiff. It doesn't have the tensile strength of the fluorocarbon either, but fluorocarbon, and one of the best on the market, is Vicious. This is the one I've been using now for about 2.5 years. Absolutely love it. It's the Elite Pro fluorocarbon by Vicious Fishing Line. You can get it at any one of the tackle stores around here. Cypress in the Outdoors, Toledo Town and Tackle, Bayou Outdoors. They all carry the Vicious brand of fishing line. You can find it in a lot of places. And it's a very common line. It's an outstanding quality of line. Now, when do I throw fluorocarbon? All my worm rods, even my jig rods, especially if I'm fishing out in open water. I use it on crankbaits. I'll go down to 12-pound test. You know, a lot of people ask, what size pound test do you use, you know, on your worm rods? It kind of depends on what I'm doing. If I'm fishing around here, 9 times out of 10, I've got 14-pound fluorocarbon on. And they're like, 14, that's awful light. You know, a lot of guys want to use 20, and you can use 20. I just like the lighter line. I think you get more bites with a lighter line than you do with a heavy line. I think the heavy line impedes the action of the bait, especially when I throw a trick worm a lot, and I throw finesse type baits a lot, small craw worms. I think the 20-pound test tends to impede the action of the bait and just tends to not make it as good a bait as it could possibly be, and I get less strikes with a heavy line. But if you're fishing for big fish and you're in heavy cover, you might want to go to a 20-pound test. If you're fishing around cypress trees, you might want to throw 20-pound test, because them fish getting them root systems, get you wrapped up, hard to get them out. The most I would probably ever go to is 17 myself, but I use anywhere from 14 to 17 depending on what I'm fishing. Now, if I'm fishing matted grass, hydrilla, water hyacinth, I'm flipping, or if I'm throwing a frog. I like to throw a frog a lot around heavy cover, especially around the water hyacinth and the floated matted over stuff, hydrilla, the salvinia, anything like that that mats over the top of the water. You can't hardly beat a spro frog. It's just hard to beat. The best line I have ever used, and I'm not exaggerating when I tell you this, Samurai Braid by Daiwa is one of the best braids you will ever put on your reel. It's a very small diameter line, tough as steel. I mean, this stuff right here, and the one thing I really like about it, it does not fade out on you. So many of the braids today are wrapped in 4 or 5 strands, 6 strands, and then they're dip and dyed, okay? Samurai, each strand is individually dyed and then it's wrapped, so it doesn't fade out on you, and you don't have that old green thumb at the end of the day after you've got through using it a lot. This is a great product. It's one of the best braids. It is a little expensive. You're gonna pay a little more, but again, it goes back to the old saying, you get what you pay for. So if you want the best, look at Daiwa's new Samurai Braid, because it's a good one. I'm promising you, you will not regret it. And the thing about braid, you can use it. I don't change my braid out maybe two or three times in 2 years. I'll use the same braid all year long. At the end of the year, I'll spool it off, swap ends with it, spool the other end from the other end on. I'm good to go. I just swap ends of the braid. So it lasts a long time. Again, yeah, it's expensive. It's in the upper 20s at most stores, most locations. But again, it's a great product, and it's something that will last a long time on your rod and reels, okay? So check it out. Samurai Braid, made by Daiwa. A Vicious fishing line for the best fluorocarbon you want to use. It's one of the best out there on the market today. Throws extremely well. Great castability, great hook setting ability, great tensile strength. Just a good product. That's this week's Hooking Up and Tracking Down Tip of the Week.